Welcome DMs, future dungeon divers, and dungeon divers. Today we're going to actually be talking about hit points, character death, and death saves. This is basically a beginner's guide for that, but it's also a refresher for the rest of us. So let's get to it. Have a seat. I'm Jimmy Lee, and this is Ability Check. Roll it. Odin, you realize this is my chair, right? Come on, off. Get off the chair. What do you mean, no? You're tired. Come on, off the chair. Let's go. Off the chair. Dude. Dude, come on. Off. No, come on, get off. Off you go. Let's go. Off. Odin, off the chair, dude. Off. Get off. Come on, get up. Get up. I want to sit down. What do you mean, no? What do you mean you were here first? Get up. Now remember, D&D is a game that's put out by Wizards of the Coast. Okay, so I'm setting up the camera. That was Odin. I was setting up the camera, getting everything ready, and he kept sitting in my chair. So anyway, let's go back to what we need to do. Now remember, like I said, I'm going to bring you the rules that are in the Player's Handbook and also in the basic rules that you can find on the website of Wizards of the Coast, and it's for free. I have a link below. You can upload it to your smartphone, your PC, or your laptop, or your tablet, whichever one you actually want it on. But like I said, I'm using those basic rules and the rules from the Player's Handbook. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is hit points. If you look on the Player's Handbook on page 196 and the basic rules on page 77, it basically tells you what hit points really are. Okay, this basically it means your durability of your character to take punishment before it dies. Basically, that's all it is. All right. The thing is, as you get up in higher levels, you get more hit points. So you're more durable. Your strength, your mental capacity, your spiritual capacity is a lot stronger. So you can take more damage, or you can take more brutality against your character. I mean, it's stronger. It gets stronger that way. And actually, if you think about it, I think it was Matt Covell that actually said the only real hit point that makes a difference is the last one, just that one. Because if you have one hit point or you have your max hit points, you're just as effective either way. But that last hit point you take, that's when you go down. All right, let's figure out where you get your hit points. Hit points are usually used by hit dice. The hit dice, depending on your class, is like a D6, a D8, a D10, or a D12. And what determines this is actually the class itself. Now, if you choose your class and you go and you look down on the chart, and it will tell you which hit dice you have. So at first level is, say, like if you're a fighter and you have a D10, or you're a cleric, you have a D8, what happens at first level is that you don't have to roll your dice. You will take the max value off the dice. So if it's a D10, you take a 10. If it's a D8, it's an 8. Then you add your con ability modifier to it, and that will be your hit points for first level. After that, when you get to second level, then you've got two choices to take. At the same place that tells you what your hit dice is, it also tells you what, I hate to call it that because it's the average value. All right, D6, it says 4, D8 says 5, D10 says 6, and D12 says 7. You can take any one of those that you are actually, whatever your hit dice is. If it's a D10, then it will be a 6, and then you add your con modifier to it, and that will be your hit points for your second level to add to the first level. Or you can just roll your dice. Now, you can take a chance, hopefully getting a higher value, or you're going to end up taking a lower value, but that's up to you. and the DM to determine which one you want to actually do. I know some players, they always take the average, and I know some other players that always like to roll. I'm the one that likes to roll. But anyway, that's how you get your hit points. Now, there's another thing we need to talk about is temporary hit points. Temporary hit points that you, during combat, you could probably get temporary hit points from like a spell. Someone cast a spell on you to give you temporary hit points. Temporary hit points are different. If you look at the character sheet, there's a place specifically for temporary hit points, and you put those there. That means that the next time that you take damage, say like if you have 5 temporary hit points, those are the first to go. So if the damage on you is a 12, 5 of those are taken away by the temporary hit points first, and then the rest of it goes off your regular hit points. Now remember, temporary hit points do not come back. Once they're gone, they're gone. Another thing too is that you cannot stack temporary hit points. It doesn't work. If you have 2 people cast a spell on you to give you temporary hit points, you can only take 1. Only 1 applies. If one of them is higher than the other one, take that one. All right? Pretty cool. Now, let's get to the second part. The next one we're going to talk about is character death. You can look at page 197 in the Player's Handbook and page 78 in the basic rules. This basically gives you an idea of what character death is. Let's say this right off the bat. Sometimes characters die. They just do because of an action you have taken or something else that happens. Sometimes they die. Not as much as they used to in earlier editions. 5e keeps them alive a little bit better, but however, sometimes it does happen. The way I look at it is that people get invested in their characters, and sometimes the character dies no matter what you try to do. It just happens, and some people are invested in it where they have a little emotional attachment to it, and they get sad. And I do too. If my character dies, I'll get sad about it. But then I also start thinking, now it's time for me to roll a new character and do something different. And so if you look at it that way, that's fine. But try to keep your character alive as much as possible. So anyway, this is what happens. If you take enough damage that your character hits 0, then your character falls down unconscious, prone. That means that they can't do anything, they can't attack, they can't make saving throws, they can't do anything. They are at 0 and they're unconscious. They're not dead yet, but they are unstable. That means that they can die and they're on the edge of death. There's a couple of ways to save from that, and one of them is death saves, but we'll talk about that in the next section we're talking about. But another way is, 1, another character can come up and try to stabilize your character, or if one of your friends go down, you can go and try to stabilize that character. It takes an action, and you can roll a medicine check. If you hit the DC 10, in other words, roll DC 10 or roll a 10 or above, then that character is stabilized. That means they are not going to die. They're still at 0 and they're still unconscious, but they won't die. Another way is a healing kit, which I highly recommend. There's a couple throughout the party. There's 10 applications in a healing kit. You can take 1 action, no rolls, and you can stabilize a down character. You do that, it's great. All right, they're kind of cheap. Like I said, it has 10 apps in it. Make sure there's a couple at least in your party. I know I try to keep my character to carry one, but sometimes that doesn't happen, but that's a good thing if you can. Like I said, you just use 1 application, it takes an action, and the down character is stabilized. They're still unconscious, they're still at 0, but they're not going to die. All right. Now, another one we need to talk about is instant death. Instant death can happen in D&D 5e. It's more likely to happen at lower levels than higher levels, but it can still happen, so you have to be aware of this. If you take enough damage that brings your character down to 0, and the damage left over can meet the maximum hit points that you actually had before you hit 0, say like if you're max, let me give an example. Okay, so say you fail a saving throw for a spell and you take 36 damage, right? You only had 4 hit points left. All right, that takes you to 0. You're unconscious, you're prone. 4 from 36 is 32. Well, you only had 26 hit points at max. Well, 32 is over 26, so your character instantly dies. All right. Now, don't fret too much. Well, sometimes there's a way to save someone from death, but at lower levels it's kind of highly unlikely because your cleric will not have any spells that can do that for you at that low level. So just be aware of what's going on around you. But that's one way to save from death. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about is death saves. Still on the same page we were on before in the Player's Handbook 198 and Basic Rules page 78. Now, when your character goes down, he has 0 hit points, he's unconscious, he's unstable. If no one can get to you, on the next round of combat, at the beginning of your turn, you can actually make a death save. And the way we do this is that you roll a 20-sided dice, you add your con modifier, and you have to beat the DC. The DC is 10. So if you roll that and you add your con modifier and it's higher than 10 or higher, then you make a save. If you roll and you add your con modifier and it's 9 and below, then you fail. All right, here it is. You need to make 3 successful saves. If you do that, you stabilize your character. If you make 3 failures, your characters die. Okay, and it doesn't have to be in order either. Say the next round, at the beginning of your turn, you roll and it's a 9, you have 1 failure. The next round, at the beginning of your turn, you roll and you make a 12, then you have 1 success. So as soon keep track of those. If you look on your character sheet, there's a spot where you can actually click on it. All right. Now here's what it goes: is that the first one, whichever you complete first, success or failure, that's what happens to your character. If you make 3 successes, your character is stabilized, it's still unconscious, and it's still at 0. Now that means that there's no more death saves. It's all reset. You're down where you're supposed to be. So if you get hit again, because if you do get hit again, you have to start all over. But the thing is, you still can make the 3, or the 3 successes, or you can do 3 failures. Now, here's the kicker, and some people hate this and some people like this, but here, let's go with this. Okay. Remember before I said critical successes, that means a natural 20, and a critical failure, which is a natural 1 on your dice when you roll, only applying to attack rolls and death saves. Been saying this all along, okay? Death saves. If you roll a natural 1, that counts for 2 failures. It doesn't matter that you can add your con to it or anything like this, it's still 2 failures. Another one, though, is if you roll a natural 20, a critical success, you are stabilized. You are conscious because it gives you 1 hit point. Because it gives you 1 hit point, you're conscious and you're stabilized. That means at the beginning of you can actually act right then because it's at the beginning of your turn. So that means that you can stand up and attack. To stand up, you have to use half your speed. So if your speed is 30, it takes you 15 to stand up, but you still get an action. So you can do that. If no one's around, I would probably start quaffing down a healing potion. But if not, if somebody's standing right there, then you can attack right away. Now, let's talk about something real quick and make sure you understand. If you make your 3 successes, okay, you're stabilized, but you're still unconscious, you're still at 0. You can't get up, not until you get at least 1 hit point given to you. All right, so but you're not dying. You succeeded. You're okay for right now, but you are stable. I know some DMs say, "Oh, you got 1 hit point, you can get up." That's not the rules as written. What they're talking about is a house rule they came up with. And remember, it doesn't apply across all games, but the rules written are: if you make 3 successes, you are stabilized. You're still unconscious. You're still at 0 hit points. And you can't get up until you actually have 1 hit point. Remember what I said about the 1 hit point? That's the one that means the most, and that's the one that does right there. Okay, well, that's everything I brought to you today. If it helped you, remember to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you don't miss anything I bring to you. And remember, be safe, play safe. Okay, Odin, whatever. I said play, and all of a sudden he grabbed a toy. But anyway, be safe, play safe. And y'all come back now, you hear? I'm Jimmy Lee, and this is Ability Check. Roll it.